from the U.S. I'm Greg DePalma, and you're listening to Prime Sports Tennis with Andrea Leanne on the Prime Sports Radio Network. On today's show, we'll recap the USA's win over Serbia in the Davis Cup and take a quick look around the globe at the other key Davis Cup results. We'll also preview this week's Fed Cup matches, including the defending champs from the U.S. as they take on the Netherlands. And we'll let you know the controversy in sports that should be getting more publicity than what's happening with the Patriots in New England as Prime Sports Tennis on the Prime Sports Radio Network starts now. All right, it's Wednesday, the 7th of February, 2018. Thanks again for tuning into Prime Sports Tennis with PSN tennis editor and former top 15 player in the world, Andrea Leanne. And Andrea, we're just 48 hours away now from getting together in my part of the country here in Western North Carolina. Even though it's raining today and it'll be raining all weekend, but it's an indoor event. So hopefully your flight will be okay. I'm looking forward to seeing the women in action this weekend too. Serena Venus joining Coco and the gang as they defend their global championship.
And Serena has landed. The Williams sisters, Serena, Venus, the whole crew landed yesterday in Nashville. They are there, ready to play. Very exciting news. And it's such a huge moment also for the U.S. Fed Cup team. Captain Kathy Rinaldi there leading the way. And as you mentioned, your girl Coco Vandeweghe, Lauren Davis is rounding out the team. And it's just so exciting. I mean, everyone is thrilled to be in Nashville. They have done an incredible job for this tie. And, we don't get the opportunity, a lot to have our ties at home. So we relish this moment. And how better than to have Serena and Venus. And Serena, of course, returning her first formal match back since having baby Olympia Ohanian, the cutest little baby ever. But Mama is back. And it's going to be very interesting to see, Greg, what shape she's in and how she fares. She played one exhibition match against Ostapenko about a month ago, and it was a little bit, back and forth, mixed reviews on that. But Serena seemed to be in better shape, and that was the key. It's all about the fitness for her. It's all about the physicality for her. She had a tough pregnancy, a delivery. She's had a tough time really getting the motor going again into the conditioning and training that you need to be in top shape to play at the professional level and be number one in the world and win Grand Slam titles as her standard. So it's going to be all about the fitness. That's what we're looking for. We're going to see, look, when you're obviously she just had a baby and you have to take the baby weight off and then you have to worry about nursing and all these sorts of things. A lot's going on with the body. So, there has to be an expectation there that's going to take time and this is not going to be overnight. So we do look for that. But, obviously it's been about trying to keep her in motion and keep her working towards that because when you also have the cutest little baby at home, it's hard to keep that focus.
Yeah, just like it's hard for you to keep your focus on the air when your dog is whining in the background. But, hey, it's live radio. What are you going to do?
He loves our show. And I'll tell you, it was great seeing the pictures of Simona Halep.
Speaking of whining, yes.
No. Simona is all smiles. It has been so phenomenal to see the smiles on Simona Halep's face in Romania. She is on that plane as well. She went with her Fed Cup team to their Fed Cup match in Romania. She is not going to play. She said that, she thought about it, and her ankle feels fine, and she looks pretty healthy, and she looks gung-ho. It's just great to see her so revived. But she's been out and about. She's with her godchildren. She's with her, niece and her baby niece. She's with Jan Turiak at promotional events. So she didn't miss a beat. Once Simona goes home with her trusted friends and family, she really just blossoms. And you just see the real Simona, the relaxed, happy Simona. And this is where she gets the strength, Greg. This is the roots. And these are the pictures. And this is the story that really needs to be told.
Yeah, well, it was actually a lot better PR picture than the one that we talked about last week, which was, we still weren't sure the genesis of the picture. We were still kind of just guessing at that point. So, what have you learned? What's going on?
Well, there's been a real response to that. Of course, you're referring to the fact that her coach, Darren Cahill, who also does double duty doing television commentary for ESPN, released a private photo of Simona in the hospital on an IV sleeping, not not awake, but sleeping, and they released it, and it got, enormous response very, very quickly. Of course, all of Romania was just absolutely, an absolute, worry and concern, and so forth. Her father had to issue a statement. To others, though, it's like, okay, she had to get some fluid. She had a tough match, but, she's not the first athlete that's needed an IV after a match. She's not going to be the last. And no one really thought this was earth-shadowing news that needed a big, news break type of thing. Some people actually thought it was a little comical. But, and now seeing her, of course, not miss a beat back in Romania, obviously she's okay. And perhaps the drama of the moment for everyone, really got the better of them. And it was just surprising. I think, look, Greg, everyone in this sport, it's a niche sport. Everyone wears a lot of hats. Everyone, double duties at some point or another. But this, for some reason, really struck a chord because it really accentuated the conflict of interest, and for Darren Cahill. And, he's the coach, he's commentating, he gave a private photo, and to that degree, the uniform response from, some of the most respected people and some of his ardent supporters, quite frankly, is that he crossed the line. And that really crossed the line in giving that photo. ESPN, who's trying to get any ratings it can, the ratings were down for ESPN this year, down from last year. They already have a challenge in trying to broadcast in the middle of the night back here in the United States. Of course, the East Coast, it's between midnight and 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, for the most part of it. And then, of course, you didn't have the big names, and so they took a dip in the ratings. They're looking for anything. But it was his decision. It was his call to give that private photo to them. And no one at this point really cares what went on behind the scenes. Everyone pretty much knows. But it was the fact that it's the conflict of interest that is really sitting tough with people and disappointed. And, look, it's a tough one. It's something that people are definitely taking note of at this stage because, this has come off a year where there's been an unprecedented amount of inside information, personal information given about Simona behind the scenes has led to some storylines. But this they say really crossed the line.
Well, I mean, we've talked a little bit about this before, this whole relationship, and especially starting with the Australian Open and everything that's taken place, and then the photo, because and I mean, to me, you tell me. I mean, from my outside opinion, I'm not in the inside tennis circles, of course, that you are, and I didn't play the sport like you did, but I mean, it just seems to me that, I mean, we're not talking about a coach that has been around coaching for 20 years, with Grand Slam championship pupils and things of that nature. Cahill has done a fine job, but it seems like he's getting all the credit when there's credit to be given. And whenever there are issues, the issues and the blame seem to go to Simona. Am I wrong?
Well, look, we've seen, you would think, obviously, with the conflict of interest there, you play it down. And we've seen other players, quite frankly, or other people at ESPN. Mary Jo Fernandez was Fed Cup captain, and she commentated. Patrick Macron, of course, he was Davis Cup captain, head of the USTA player development. And you play it down. You do your best to play it down. We had Boris Becker coaching Novak and doing commentary. You have to play it down. Everyone in the business knows more than they ever report. Everyone knows more behind the scenes. And you use your restraint, you use your common sense, and you use some perspective, quite frankly, and really discerning what's important and what's salacious and unimportant and not really the right thing to do. So, it comes down to a judgment call, and that's where, look, I've known Darren for ages. As I told you, we did commentating, sat in the booth for I don't know how many hours with his buddy Wally Masur, having a great time for Star ESPN International. So he's a great guy. Everyone likes Darren. He's a good guy. He's a fine coach. He's done a terrific job with Simona. You give him credit for helping her become number one in the world. And no one takes that away from it. It's just now, you have this conflict of interest, you have these storylines, and it's been tough. But, you look at Simona, and people ask, well, it's really about her. And, she's playing great tennis. You look at the stats, though, as we've already remarked, a lot of people don't really see a lot of change in her game. If the stats back it up, if you go back to that 2014 French Open with Sharapova, it was interesting because, Greg, when I was watching the match with Caroline, her match with Caroline in the final, and I'm watching the match in the last bunch of games, and all of a sudden it occurs to me, she can't put the ball away from the baseline. And everyone's jumping up and down over her 40-some winners of the match. I give her credit for 120 winners in that match. Because when you're little, when you have little arms and little legs and little body, there's physically just so much you can do. There's so much wherewithal you can do in a match. And she's flailing her arm and her entire body into every shot, trying to put it away. And she's just not going to be able to do it from the baseline. So, I could see Caroline, in her mind, because she always, as we said, is the such a smart competitor. She's probably just saying to herself, she can't put the ball away from the baseline. If I keep it out of the middle of the short court and keep just putting it back there deep, she's eventually going to miss. And that is really what happened. So, to me, I think when you look at Simona Halep, she's the little engine that could. She's the overachiever, the one who keeps huffing and puffing. And sometimes in trying to play this offensive game, which is a different energy, Greg, than being the counterpuncher. When you're the offensive player out there, you have to generate the pace. You got to generate the play, and you got to put the ball away. Whereas as a counterpuncher, you're feeding off your opponent's pace, and you basically are reacting to what they're giving you. So it is a different energy. And I think for Simona, being the little engine that could, trying to, bat these balls away, you are at times going to huff and puff and blow yourself out, which I think ultimately she did in that final. But on the other hand, you're also going to have that consistency where you get out there and you fight and you fight. And when the big guns don't have it, like we've seen this year with, for various reasons, Serena, Vika, Maria, Muguruza, a lot of the ones just not either there or producing, it's going to be the players like Simona who are able to come through. And so I give her huge credit because to me, this is the storyline. You got this, as Jan Churiak has said to Simona so many times, how does such a little girl beat all these big girls? How do you do it? How can you do it? And this is where the will and the determination and the guts and the grit have really told the story. And this is why I think, Greg, she is causing this tennis revolution in Romania. And I think this has really been missed. And this is what our front line at the WTA really needs to focus on, is this incredible revolution of tennis popularity she has caused. Do you know they have five Romanians in the top 100, ranked in the top 100 on the WTA computer. And kids now are just pouring into the clubs to learn to play tennis because of her success. And so I think that there are just so many great storylines there. And, I say to Darren, why are you buying yourself this trouble? You don't have to be the PR guy. You don't have to be the marketing guy. She's got a team. She's got a team to do all this. It's enough just to coach her, I would think. And, that's where, he's got to stay in his lane and let the other people do the other stuff. If they want to release a picture and that camp wants to release a picture, let them go through the right channels and do it. Let her marketing guy, let her PR guy, let her manager do it. And that will then really negate any kind of major conflict of interest for him and his other duty, which is with the ESPN.
Yeah, well, as we said last week, whatever it is that he's been able to do to get her to this point, number one in the world, and again, anybody can criticize or praise as much as you want. The fact is, the results are the results. And but as we said last week, just keep with the photos or anything else, all that outside off the court interference, just get rid of it. Just keep doing what you're doing because it's working, and sooner or later she's gonna win a Grand Slam, and maybe she'll also be, because I know that's probably like the last thing that some of the other harsher media critics are kind of waiting for. You know how it is if you don't win the big one. You're number one, but you didn't win the big one. I mean, Caroline went through it. And look how long it took her to finally win it, but she did it on her own terms. So Simona, we know if she just keeps focusing at this level of play, she's in the prime of her career, she's going to win multiple Grand Slams, and there's not going to be a need for any of this outside stuff.
Well, I agree, and I think that she's going to be around a long time. This is someone you have to embrace, and I think it's also important. People are working really hard, Greg, to promote the stars, to promote the game, and to grow the sport. And when you see Steve Simon, he didn't just stop in Australia. He was back in Singapore. Then he was in China again for another stop, and then he's in St. Petersburg, to watch. Of course, Petra Kvitova comes through to beat Kiki Milanovic in the final there, and of course you have Caroline in what was one of the most incredible ceremonies I've ever seen in a tournament. I give huge credit to St. Petersburg for the enormous display they put on in it was kind of a coronation of sorts for Caroline in her first foray back as number one in the world. And there's Steve Simon out there. He's out there plugging the tour. And the WTA in St. Pete, the hierarchy there is out there. They're trying to really promote the tour and grow the game. They want to get a tour sponsor. They want to get women's tennis out there. And this is where you have to see the big picture. Whereas when you're just a coach, it's about, we know Darren, it promotes Darren, but it's the tour that's promoting Simona. It's her management company that's promoting Simona and the game. And there's a bigger picture there, and a lot more need there that has to be considered. And that's why I think it is important to look at these other storylines, and everyone really needs to, stick to their job and what that description is. Of course, Greg, as everyone will tell you, who knows Simona, who knows the behind the scenes, look, she likes Darren. She likes the guy. She's got a personal affinity for this guy. She likes hanging out with him. I mean, who can spend, 6 hours in the car with your coach going from Buffalo to Cincinnati because you don't want to take the private plane with the rest of the team? And, he goes to Romania and they eat dinner 12 nights in a row. I mean, I couldn't even conceive of having, by choice, eating 12 nights in a row with my coach. But this is, they have a close rapport. Simona really likes the guy, and when you have the personal affinity for the guy, and you're a 26-year-old young girl, It's tough to really set those boundaries. And so, it's going to be up to Darren really to be very sensitive to this conflict of interest and sensitive to the people out there who now are very well aware of it and are monitoring it, and hopefully just go on with this and really look into the positive storylines.
Yeah, it's like even though things are working out, it's like a delicate tightrope like Darren is working on right now, and it's not easy. And you really don't want to be on that tightrope.
Well, I don't think it's that hard, quite frankly. I think you don't.
You don't need it to be that hard.
A line. You don't give out private photos. You don't cross that line with ESPN. And I actually thought they had been doing it fairly well. He had mentioned that he was trying to stay away from the women's matches, stay away from that type of thing, and really create a boundary there. And I think they have to go back to that.
Okay. Now, as far as the rest of what's going on, Fed Cup this week, oh boy, Kiki Mladenovic, we've been waiting for her to win all year. All season, I should say, or even going back to last season. And
have we seen the highlight reel of the road to the final in St. Petersburg? Of course, she was defending that title. She won that title there last year. So it was quite a moment, though. We saw the emotion in her face when she won the Grand Slam doubles title at the Australian Open with Babish. And how interesting, ironically enough, Babish wins the title over in Taipei the same week. So it was great to see that doubles really has such an important part in the game, including at the top. Mladenovic played a terrific week, but Kvitova, oh my goodness. Greg, she's so happy right now. She's got a great cozy situation off court. She loves her team, loves her coach, and she is just playing great tennis. And she's playing Kvitova tennis. It's signature Petra, swinging for the hills, hitting the winners, hitting the aces. But to me, the biggest difference is she's in much better shape. She's taken off some weight. She looks trimmer. She's moving better, and that allows her to set up and hit the winners. When she, to me, is not really putting the time in off court as she should. She was a little bit slower to the ball. She was getting a little bit winded, we saw, and not really able to last the whole entire week. But this time, to me, she looks so much trimmer. And boy, great in the Nike outfit too, which is not an easy outfit to pull off. And we give her a lot of credit because she's a face we really need back in the game.
All right,
and back at the top.
All right. Also, Garrigus and Kerber go on and lead Germany to a win over Belarus. The Czechs go out and beat the Swiss. Speaking of the Swiss, Martina Hingis was named coach of the Swiss team.
Well, in the Fed Cup, we're going to review the Davis Cup, and of course the Swiss are due to play this weekend as well. As Heinz Gunhart has named Martina onto the team as the coach, which is great.
Yeah.
Been hitting with Bencic, and she is, of course, a great asset to the Swiss team. She's smart. Of course, she's just retired herself. She's getting married this summer. So a lot going on for Martina. She was actually in St. Petersburg as well. They had I'm going to call it a legends match where they brought Dementieva back, and they brought even Maioli was there, and of course Hingis, and it's really nice to see the veterans. And I think a lot of the new generation, the next guard, gets a lot of talking to the former veterans like this, and Hingis has a lot to offer. So that'll be good news. As you said, we have the U.S. playing, but we're going to go back and review Davis Cup, and because there's been so much excitement there, Greg. I mean, we talk about the U.S. getting ready for Asheville, but it was the U.S. Davis Cup in Serbia. No Novak, of course, as you probably saw, he got had a surgical procedure on his arm. They said it was to remove a bone fragment. Has some sort of relationship to the elbow. Not a lot of details, but he was in some sort of bandaged, arm last few days. And he's feeling optimistic about this. He thinks it's going to help him. He thinks it's going to really alleviate the problem. We'll have to see. But he was not in Serbia, where the U.S., boy, what a decisive win they had. And credit to Isner. He pulls out a 5-setter on red clay. Quite a feat for him. And, of course, they've instituted that tiebreaker in the 5th set. So we had a tiebreak there, which he is so well-versed in. And it was great. He had Query, Ryan Harrison, Stevie Johnson, and Ryan played the doubles. So they had a three-love advantage after the first 2 days, and it was a done deal.
Now,
and they now will play Belgium, as you mentioned. They're trying to get to the semifinals for the first time since 2012.
Now, I do want to ask you about, because all right, we'll stay on the Davis Cup, the matches from last week first, because I was going over the German matchup that's coming up this week on the Fed Cup, but last week the German on the men's side, Sasha Zverev, they had some success. He had a very good couple of matches, and that included beating Nick Kyrgios. So that was actually a very good first-round matchup. Good players, good matchups for this early in the Davis Cup season, Germany and Australia.
Well, that was a great match. It was fantastic because, a lot of people thought Kyrgios may be able to carry the team to that victory and beat Sasha, who he has beaten before quite a lot. But I have to tell you, I really thought first of all, we have to give the spotlight to the young kid, Alex de Minaur. I mean, boy, he really put it to Sasha in that first round tie, first match, first day, where he was able to take Sasha to 5 sets. And he is showing all the promise and potential everyone is expecting now, Greg. It's interesting, though. He's playing for Australia, but he really lives in Spain. He's lived practically his whole life in Spain. Yes, he was born in Sydney. But this is, the kind of the melting pot we've started to become accustomed to with Australia. And, a lot of people immigrating there, but a lot of various backgrounds. And de Minaur, is obviously still working in Spain, and you can see tremendous potential, and the Australians, though, are very excited about that, getting behind him. But I really credit Zverev, after having such a tough loss at the Australian 6-0 in that last set to Chung. People were saying he just doesn't have the fight, he doesn't have the competitiveness to go the distance, and, yes, he's very talented and very athletic and, a lot of ability, but not the mental. And I didn't think that was exactly fair. I've seen Sasha Zverev get gritty. I've seen him fight for matches. Yes, 2 out of 3. And to me, it's just, everything has come so easy to him, Greg, and he is kind of the golden boy. He's got all the little girls running after him. He's got everyone doing everything for him because he's such a, star already. He has that star quality that, sometimes I think it may get lost that you have to really get gritty on court. And for those in the 4th and 5th sets, that's where you really got to get tough. And to me, it's more of a practice. He's got to do more and more of it before he becomes good at it. So I was very, very happy to see him win this 5th set over de Minaur. First time he's gone the distance and come out successful. And I also thought it was interesting to see Boris Becker on the sidelines for Germany there, because as you remember, actually it was Sasha Zverev who offered the coaching job to Boris when he stopped with Novak. He wanted to bring Boris on board. Boris, though, was too expensive. He couldn't afford Boris. But now, as fate would happen, the German Tennis Federation has brought Boris on. And so through this now, he will have, Sasha Zverev will have the leadership and the mentorship of Boris Becker. And I think this is going to be very pivotal for him. I think he needs that type of experience and that type of mojo behind him.
All right. Also, Croatia over Canada. Shapovalov how's his game been? Because he hasn't. I mean, he's a young kid. So, do you think he's playing up to his ability right now? A lot of pressure on him after what happened last year.
Well, he lost to Church over there, and it's interesting because look, he's very talented. He's so charismatic on court, though. I mean, he's just such a crowd pleaser. Because you look at this guy, and he is another one. He's not very big, but he's throwing his body into every shot. And you got to admire that. You just got to love the fact that he just loves the game so much and loves to compete and loves to be out there. And yeah, he's still evolving. He's got some ways to go. He's got some. He's always going to have a physical limitation from these big guys. These guys who are 6'5", 6'3", who have the big weapons. That's always going to be a tough thing for him. But he's got a lot of ability too, and I think that he knows how to maximize it. And he's going to be one of these great faces we're going to see in the top 10 for a long time to come because he's so invested in it all and in the process of improving. But yeah, you give credit to George as well. He's had knee surgery and things. He's come back in the last year, and he's a gritty guy too. He's another one we're going to see for a long time. So I love this about Davis Cup. Okay, some of the top stars didn't play. Rafa didn't play. Roger, Stan, obviously Novak and Andy have been out. But it's okay because you know what? You have other players who come into the fold who love the spotlight in their own country, and that's what Davis Cup is all about. And that's why we salute it and we continue to support it.
All right. And by the way, USA, what's up next for them? Who are they going to be matching up? We got another.
Well, they will play Belgium, which is Goffin's territory,
okay,
and of course,
okay.
Goffin led Belgium to the final last year.
Very nice.
And we don't know if he's going to play or not. It is in the United States, and so look, I love this about this draw for the U.S. Davis Cup team. Sometimes it's not easy, Greg. When you're John Isner having to get on a plane and go to Serbia to play on red clay in the middle of your schedule of what is going to be your hard court season in the United States. That's an effort, and Query did it as well. He's got points to defend coming up, and it's great to see that commitment, that investment. Of course, Captain Courier behind it, as well as, Eric Buderak was over there. You had Michelle Sheehan. I mean, the USTA is pulling out all the stops to give them the support they need and make sure they have everything they need. Because, sometimes title wins start with matches like this. These very kind of obscure ties and faraway lands that no one really gets to see. But that's how a title search starts. So it would not surprise me if we are, by the end of the year saying, you know what, the U.S. won the Davis Cup, and who it would start in Serbia.
All right. So as far as the the Fed Cup, I just want to ask you with give me an upset, a potential upset this week. I mean, Hingis, will her being the new coach of the Swiss team, do they have any shot against the Czechs? I don't know. Again, as I mentioned, Belarus going up against those two powerhouses. Kerber's playing great. Garrigus
well,
is
I got to mention about Belarus since we're talking. Sabalenka has just hired Magnus Norman. And I am so happy. We have so many great coaches on the women's tour. We have Sven Grunveld. We have Wim Fissette. We have Michael Joyce is out there now with Konta. And they're just, great coaches. I have to tell you, I'm happy to see Sabalenka, who's a very big, strong girl who's got huge weapons. I mean, scary weapons, like keys. Has hired Magnus Norman, a former coach of Stan Wawrinka. So I'm happy to see that. Belarus is there. Obviously, Vika will not be playing. We're hoping to see her back. She's taken a wild card into one of the events in the Arab Emirates, but we also expect her definitely to play though in Indian Wells because we know she can play in California. So that's exciting. But the upsets, I think that. I think this is going to be. It should be a pretty routine one for the U.S.
Okay.
To me, the funniest picture I've seen in the parties given for the pre-festivities of Fed Cup was the Czech team. You had the entire Czech team, which is Kvitova, Safarova, Strikova, and of course Pliskova, Karolina Pliskova, sitting there, and their coach is there. Now, I think all four of these coaches at some point or other coach all the four players because you've had all the behind the scenes that this one stole this coach and Jerry went from Pliskova to Kvitova, and then of course Strikova and Pliskova had their whole thing over their coaching. So it's been kind of a musical chairs of sorts. There they all were, Greg, in one big happy picture, happy family, all the coaches, all the players. because the Czech team just gets it, and they are posting this year. They have made it very clear they want the title back. They didn't like the fact the U.S. snuck by last year, they feel, and so they are posting this year with their top stars, and it's going to be very exciting.
Czechs, are they the favorites, you think?
Yes, absolutely. I would definitely. Kvitova coming off a win, and of course Pliskova ranked as high as she is. They would certainly be the favorites.
Okay, so even with, I mean, because we don't know. I mean, what's your best guess on whether Serena and Venus play all year Davis Cup?
Fed Cup.
Fed Cup.
Well,
yeah.
It's. I think also we have to put out there. You have to qualify for the Olympics playing Fed Cup or Davis Cup. You have to make yourself available. So obviously that's in the back of their mind too, as well. They definitely want to represent the United States. They want to represent their country in Tokyo. So it's a kind of two birds with one stone. I think it's a great idea for Serena to be playing this week for the United States, because also she gets to see just where she is with her game and gets to test her wares. But I think that this is something where I also believe when you have Captain Rinaldi, really behind the scenes trying to create a camaraderie, create an investment in it, that I think once the girls get there and they have fun and they have a good time and they realize what it is to be on a team and to be part of that team, they just want more and more of it. And we saw that with Coco last year. And it really helped her actually then when she went out onto the tour for her tour event. She had her best year last year, leading also the U.S. to the title. So I think there's a lot that goes back and forth between this, and it feeds off each other in a very positive way. And look, it's great also to see Kathy Rinaldi and Martin Blackman and the USTA watching every one of these girls' matches when they're at the Grand Slams, at the events. It's so great to have that extra amount of support behind you. I think it does help. Even players like Serena and Venus, quite frankly. Obviously, they're veterans. They've been around. They're in their mid-30s. They've done it all. But this is something that I think is the one team event where they can really find something special.
And that's the trick about proclaiming one of these teams, one of these countries, the favorites, is you have to have depth. Because it's very hard for especially the top rank women to play all year in all the events. And it only takes one round for a couple of the top players for whatever reason, and they can't make it, and that team could be eliminated. So you have to have the depth.
Right, and we'll see, of course, France is going up against Belgium. That, to me, is the most interesting even keel. We'll have, of course, Kiki Milanovic, and then Mertens, of course, who got to the semis at the Australians, playing very, very good tennis. Kim Clijsters is behind her. And, the U.S. will be watching for that to see who wins that one.
Okay.
Because they will play the winner if they, of course, pull through this weekend, which I expect. But, I think that this is just another part of the game that really brings in the fans, too, Greg. Kids love this. And, we saw with the Laver Cup, you see the camaraderie on and off court. People love it. This is the stuff, this is the good stuff. Fans and kids and parents turn in to watch tennis and to watch sport because they want to see the inspiring stories. They want to see the heroics on court. They want to see the camaraderie off court. And this is what builds all the things that they try and teach their children. So, I think that's why team sport has such a major role in the game. And I'm glad to see Fed Cup and Davis Cup getting their due, as well as events like the Laver Cup.
All right, Andrea, I'll see you in 2 days, and then next week we'll report on it.
We haven't even mentioned the fact that Caroline's issued a new photo.
Oh, boy. Well, have you tweeted it out?
We of course will. Because we do actually want to salute her.
Yeah.
She's going to be our player of the month, because I'll tell you why. Not only did she played in Auckland, she won the Australian Open, she became number one in the world, her first Grand Slam title. She then got on a plane, took a quick trip home, and then got to St. Petersburg to make that player commitment for the tour, to get her number one, accolades on court, which the tour then, gets great exposure for, and to do her due diligence in St. Petersburg, which really helps the fans there. They were so thrilled to see her. And to be able to, just days after winning that Grand Slam title, to get on the plane and do that is incredible fortitude and smarts from her. So we salute her. And we're going to keep watch, Greg, because there's a top player who's apparently ditching their management company, and they have no idea. So we'll stay tuned on that.
All right. Sounds good. We'll talk more about that next week. We'll wrap up our day at our weekend at the Fed Cup this weekend in Asheville. Andrea, appreciate it. Looking forward to.
And by the way, we got to mention one more thing.
Okay.
Sebastian Corda. We want everyone to watch out for Sebastian Corda next week, getting a wild card into the New York Open. First time there in Long Island in years. Great event. And Sebastian Corda, whose father is Peter Corda, Australian Open champion. Mother, Regina Ratchetova, who played when I played. Phenomenal person. Just terrific parents. He is going to be taking a wild card into a pro tournament in Long Island on the ATP event there. So we're going to please tell our viewers to watch out for him.
All right, sounds good. Will do. We'll be back again next week, of course, to report on what happened this week in Asheville at the Fed Cup and get you ready for next week's action in pro tennis. Still, of course, a whole month to go here, February. And before you know it, we'll be getting into some big matches, including out west. In California and then back in the Southeast in Miami. So we have some big events to cover in the next couple of months. We'll be back every week next week.
We're going to be there, too. We will be there live for all those events, Greg.
That's right. So you got a busy calendar, don't you?
Well, I hope you're gearing up for this weekend because you're going to be courtside.
I'm looking forward to it. All right. Okay. I'm just glad it's indoors. Okay. Yeah, the girls are glad, too. All right, so that'll wrap it up here. Don't forget to check out all our on-demand shows following every broadcast on the website at primesportsnetwork.com. You can also check us out on iTunes and YouTube under Prime Sports Network. Make sure to tune in again next week and every week right here on Prime Sports Tennis with Andrea Leand on the Prime Sports Radio Network.